Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Welcome to the show. Happy Saturday, everybody. Happy Nerd Halen Day for everybody who's coming to the show tonight at the M.
I wish Vegas. I could be there, Hal. You know I'd support you.
You'll make it to one of the shows eventually, and most likely because we're bringing it to Chicago. We're trying to work out the date right now, but it'll be when the weather is lovely. I promise. Yeah. So, a couple of things right out of the gate. Excuse me. I will be on Joan Esposito's show on Monday, dropping in, talking about the politics and the whatnot. Trying not to swear on the air, using my Saturday skills to not mess with my streaming situation then. And then, of course, there's so much to talk about, so much to unpack. And every time, this was supposed to be so easy for the Republicans. Remember, let's go in the Wayback Machine to August or late July, maybe even before the Dobbs news broke, April, right? Late March. And the Republicans were like, look, whoever's in power always loses seats in the midterms. And we got the wind at our backs. Biden is totally unpopular. His inflation is up. Russia's attacked. We're, blah, blah, blah. And they were all like, this is our year. And then a couple of things happen, and then they step on their own tail a bunch of times, and then there's just everywhere they go, there's kind of a rake, and they skid through with a hair, skin of their teeth when holding on to the House. And that's shaky right now because again, there are 5.
I mean, thank goodness for George Louis Dreyfus Santos.
Yeah, Anthony DeVolder. Which is the name he used at all LGBT events because I don't know, that's his. That's
the coolest thing he's done so far. That's the only thing you can prove. The only thing you can prove about him, the coolest thing, is the thing he's denying the hardest.
That's right. Yeah, you can pretty much guarantee that if he says absolutely never, then there's not only is it on tape, but he's signed a piece of paper saying, this was me in this video. So anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I love that he did that. I love that, he felt like doing that. It's real. That's a person. And he's, I don't know. He's just psychotic.
He is. He's a crazy person. But again, not insane, not clinically ill, just nuts. And there's got to be a distinction. I'm not writing off that this guy has some sort of pathological problem. I just think he's awful. But anyways, so this was supposed to be, again, and he's part and parcel to it, but this was supposed to be a time when the Republicans were going to seize back power and they were going to investigate the investigators and they're going after the FBI and they're going to open the jails and free the Jan 6ers, all the ones that couldn't make bail because they said, Your Honor, I did it, and if you let me out today, I'd do it again for America and Donald Trump, but mostly Donald Trump. By the way, I have a piece of the transcript from one of the Jan 6ers, the guy who put his feet on Pelosi's desk. Remember that guy? Big O Barnett, that guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was one of the original worst ones.
That's right. It's pretty sweet. But this was supposed to be a time when they're like, Jim Jordan's going to be in charge of anything. He might even be speaker. They might even have Marge Green sidecarring as speaker. They're going to run away with it. It's not only is Kevin McCarthy, in his belief in August or April, depending on when his fantasy started happening, was going to have just glide into control of the House, but he was going to have such an overwhelming majority that they wouldn't have to take any guff from Democrats at all. They could just, if you want anything to pass, you got to come through me. That was the whole thing. Now he is literally getting, he's getting cussed out by the most reliable Republicans in the House, people who have been reelected multiple times, on the floor, F-bombs and all. But nothing's going to break their stride. Ain't nothing going to slow them down except
Oh no.
There were reports coming out last week that the White House, specifically Biden and Harris and the
I know I'm totally interrupting you.
Yes.
But there've been some super chats. Hal Vickery is amazing, of course. But Angela C. Phillips Mills just said that Trump is giving the eulogy at Diamond's funeral.
Yes, he is. Yes, that's true.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So back to our regularly scheduled rant.
And it's going to be sweet because he has already truth socialed that he believes her heart gave out because she was heartbroken, literally, over the 2020 election and the fact that he lost. So the eulogy is going to be a bunch of self-involved magic. Imagine. At least
I hope it's about him.
Oh, it can't not be. But imagine, when he steamrolls a wedding or any of those things at Mar-a-Lago. Imagine that, but there's a casket. All right. So anyways, this is supposed to be smooth sailing. It was all going to go so well for them. And now there are these reports coming out that the White House is literally having giggle fits, the kind that I have on my live stream at times, about the idea that Marge and Lauren Boebert and Jim Jordan and all these people think they run the place now because they're going to be on these committees and they're going to be clamoring around, not knowing that, clamoring on a committee doesn't result in legislation unless you actually do your homework, which none of them do. Secondly, you have to actually write up a bill that will actually pass even beyond your caucus, much less your entire party with that slim a margin. You're going to need Democrats on board for almost anything that they would throw out. And it's just an absurdity. And then the George Santos thing is sort of the gift that keeps on giving.
It sincerely will not quit.
It is. Every time we think he can't sort of top the Republican, like everything that they consider good about themselves, being successful business people, he lied about that. Being, from an elite institution, but being people of the people. Lied about both.
Having 2 knee replacements.
Yes.
Like volleyball.
Winning gold medals, participation trophies, and or stolen valor. And then we get to the worst, I would say, for me, and this is as someone who is not Jewish and not even in quotes Jew-ish. I would never claim in this zone of it. But I found
you are Jew-esque.
Was I? Yeah. I found that the thing that I found most atrocious of all the garbage that he has said. Now, the story about him taking money from a veteran who was trying to raise money for his dog that was dying is awful. And, and the murky story, the intentionally hidden aspects of it, keep it kind of off the table. But that's just horrifying to start with.
I want to be all in on that one, but it's got too many
moving parts.
Yeah.
But
and it's like, and we'll say it's a veteran. It's too much.
In the one standout detail in that one that really, I don't know why, but that in particular I found the most grotesque, which was he used that Jaworski name on one of these GoFundMe's because he said to his friend, Jews will give you more money if they think you're a Jew. And I gotta say, we don't know if that's a direct quote, but it seems to be because there wasn't the use of Jewish in that mix. It seems like he's hitting the hard W on that one. Like some folks hit the hard R, you know what I mean? He seems to be
Jew.
Yeah, right. And that one I was like, all right, F this dude. Like at a certain point it was like charmingly gross. He's not our problem. He's Republican.
Yeah, it's let's keep that weird fire burning.
They can flush their own floaters. But then that's where there was a line that I wasn't aware existed in this stuff. And I was like, that's just awful. That is classic anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish trope about that's that's the huckster storyline that's been around. Like it's gross. It's just like you just read it and you're like, ew, no, you are now. I know officially you're not just a creep. You're a genuinely awful human being. But that rolled by like a minor speed bump to the Republicans. Like that came and went as far as but it seems that ultimately, long form, the thing that's going to take him down and the thing that actually spiked the number of calls, if you look at the number of calls for his, stepping down or a new election or for him to resign, they peaked after it came out that he was doing drag in Brazil on the regular.
That's what really upset them.
As opposed to a one-off like Rudy Giuliani, that it was a regular thing, that he had a drag name and everything. And by the way, some people are calling him a drag queen. No. Anthony DeVolder / George Santos / whoever the hell he is not a drag queen. Drag queens put in work. It's a
so much effort.
Just doing drag doesn't make you a drag queen any more than I suppose just doing porn makes you a porn star. That gets thrown around a lot.
It's a quick leap that I don't appreciate for the people who really put in the legwork.
Yes, who've got a career that spans an awkward number of years. And the same thing is true of like drag queens, like the regular shows, the ginormous outfits that give old Vegas showgirls a run for their money, headdresses that will give you neck problems later in life.
Makeup is like borderline kabuki. It is amazing.
Yes, it is. And so for the record, I'm just drawing this line here. This is my own personal line. People need to stop saying that he was a drag queen. He did drag. Drag queens work for a living. This guy is a hanger-on.
Yeah.
And by the way, he, as of this week, is sort of the least of the Republicans' problems. We got to take a break. When we come back, did you hear about the new documentary that just dropped at the last minute at Sundance? Johnny Million?
No.
Well, you're about to. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. 773-763-9278. Next hour, Philip Ittner will be joining us from Ukraine, and there's a lot going on there. Thanks for the memories. We'll be back.
The Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So we got news last year that the Jim Jordan OSU sexual abuse story was coming out. Helmed by George Clooney, who, was in Never Too Young to Die with Gene Simmons. So always bringing it back to our kiss situation. Yeah, that's right. Early acting.
Our situation.
Yeah, for the young George Clooney. And by the way, he looks fantastic these days. It's annoying. But he this has been lurking in the background, making Jim Jordan nervous for quite some time. And it's not going to be pretty. Once it gets out, this will be, because there have been written stories about this. There have been some people who've done a few maybe YouTube videos about it. There's been talk about it in the news on a low-res level, but no real deep dives that I have seen anyways. Other than, I'm sure someone has done an hour-long YouTube video somewhere on it, but it's that kind of thing, buried in the billions of hours that get uploaded to YouTube every week. But this is a big step forward. The Clooney documentary about Jim Jordan, bought by HBO, premiered at Sundance. And then at the last minute, this Kavanaugh documentary called Justice by Doug Liman drops at, it wasn't originally, I don't believe, in the lineup to be screened, and was a last minute entry to Sundance about not only the women that came forward, but the other stories in the background that quite frankly, victims who were afraid to come forward, partly because they saw what had happened, and also because as he grew as a judge, he was getting more and more power, and that scared them. And especially because of the divisive nature of the right, there's a certain segment of the pro-life movement that believes in a scorched earth idea, that as long as he goes there and does this one thing, overturns Roe v. Wade.
Just like not coming up or not speaking out against Trump or Santos or anything like that.
Yeah. The as long as he's doing this, they will back him in any circumstance. And so this one in particular, I believe it's the. There were a lot of people, by the way, that were there at the screening that were, again, aware that this was a last minute addition, and it was a big deal in catch up. This is a Daily Beast's article on this. We're talking about obviously Christine Blasey Ford. Everybody was aware of what she did and her testimony and how much flack she caught. And another of her
and you know how she's like a huge rich celebrity now that she came out and did that. She got what she wanted.
Absolutely. She got that reality show, and she got sponsorships, all the things you get when you come forward and tell a really uncomfortable story from your youth, that when you're trying to warn people that they might be putting a bad guy into a lifetime appointment. Deborah Ramirez was another classmate of his. But apparently one of the most damning parts of it is a never before heard audio recording made by one of Kavanaugh's Yale colleagues, and this is from the Daily Beast article, Partnership for Public Service President and CEO Max Stier, that not only corroborates Ramirez's charges, but suggests that Kavanaugh violated another unnamed woman as well. A last-minute addition to Sundance's film festival, Justice is the first feature documentary helmed by Lyman, who did Swingers and The Bourne Identity and Edge of Tomorrow, which is one of my favorite sci-fi films. I think it's the best sci-fi film of the last 30 years. I'm just saying. His latest is, I'm going there. Let's see. The biggest new bombshell in it is that audio recording. Midway through, Lyman, while he was filming it, received this tip that there was an anonymous individual who provided a tape made by Stier shortly after the FBI, compelled by Ford's courageous and heart-rending testimony, this again from the Daily Beast, before the Senate Judiciary Committee, briefly reopened its investigation into the embattled then nominee Kavanaugh. Because it's really, the documentary itself seems to be really about how the FBI didn't do its due diligence for fear of crossing Trump and the other folks. For all this weaponization of the Justice Department, what we're finding is that during the Trump administration, they just slammed the brakes anywhere it would cause them trouble. That's how Trump's Justice Department handled most things, because investigating something takes activity, it takes money, it takes focus, it takes a long time, it takes a lot of due diligence, and stomping on the brakes doesn't. So steering people away from stuff or falsely prioritizing things and that stuff is a much easier way for people to steer people away from your troubles. Which, by the way, in terms of the Biden docs case, for example, the Biden administration is doing none of that. They're not opposing a special counsel. They're cooperating fully. They're not telling the FBI, don't look under that thing. They're literally sending lawyers to all these places going, here's everything that we can find. I thought it was especially telling that when you hear about the Penn story initially, which started this whole thing, that when they found some documents that they saw were classified, they took all the boxes that were in that locked closet and just gave those boxes to NARA. They didn't take stuff out or go through it themselves looking for classified documents. They just said, if there's a chance I can have my eyes on some classified stuff, I don't even want to risk that. And they just gave the boxes over for NARA to sort through, and then you can give us back anything that, is a problem. And it ends up being like 5 pages of stuff that were not top secret. They were just old-fashioned classified, and God knows if that classification marking still mattered, 8 to 10 years later, whenever they were made. But Stier goes on to explain that though he didn't know Ramirez, he had heard from classmates about her separate, eerily similar encounter with Kavanaugh, which she personally describes in Justice. She gives a breakdown of what happened. According to Ramirez, an intoxicated Kavanaugh exposed himself right in front of her face in college, and then she suppressed certain memories of the aspects of this trauma until she was contacted by the New Yorker's Ronan Farrow. She talks about it. It's just apparently very heartbreaking. I haven't seen it yet because, again, this just broke. But again, this is gonna get bought up. It's gonna probably be a double feature at this point on HBO by this standard. And again, this was supposed to be a time, and it is Brett Kavanaugh this morning was the number one thing trending on Twitter right out of the gate. You know what the second thing was? Ivermectin. That's how smoothly it's all going for Republicans right now. And why? You know why ivermectin is trending? Because Tucker Carlson is making the case that nicotine is better for you than THC, and it's basically a government plot to make you soft-headed, to get people to stop smoking cigarettes, which makes you a rugged individual, and start smoking pot, which makes you a poor-headed idiot. And because of that, Republicans, like all the accounts that were bounced, the fake bot accounts, and their support, paid overseas accounts that were carrying these kind of ivermectin stories and that nonsense, all during Trump, and then were bounced off Twitter, are all back now. So they're all going, they were wrong about nicotine and ivermectin and the jab and blah, blah, blah. It's fascinating. And again, this was supposed to be a coasting time for the Republicans. They're setting up committees. They're going to investigate the investigators. This is everything's fixed. Everything's better now. And promises made, promises kept, which involve what? What have been the big promises kept right out of the gate? Well, the rules that they passed said, among other things, that everybody has to be present for the amendment process of any bill that gets put on the floor, and they have a good, robust debate about it. And you got to wait 72 hours to post a bill anyways to put it up for a vote, so everybody has time to read it, right? And what happened? They voted on the rules, and then minutes later, which I guess you could say 72 hours contains a lot of minutes later, but minutes later, the same day, they voted on their repeal of the IRS agents, all these 3 or 4, just like namesake bills that they've been arguing that they should get a vote for. And understand, many, many times, I think people jump at their gut reaction to a lot of these things. Feels right, but is wrong. And the idea is that, oh my God, he's giving them everything they want right out of the gate. And certainly Scott Perry and Marge and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz all seemed to believe this when Monday night after the rules package, they started voting on these things. But I'm here to tell you that for their count, it was a win-win to some degree, because from the Freedom Caucasians crowd's idea, like they're getting the vote on it was them, printing an ad for themselves. I stood strong and didn't vote for McCarthy until he promised us, and we got what I promised, right? Right out of the gate on Monday night after the vote when everybody had tuned out. In McCarthy's case, those votes happened, and they're done. They're not happening again. They happened in the first 2 hours, and there's not going to be another shot at that stuff. So he got them off his back, satisfied that one thing, mainly to get it off his plate. So while Lauren Boebert and that crowd are patting themselves on the back for getting the vote they demanded, those votes, aren't going anywhere, would never make it through the Senate or the White House, of course, but they wouldn't even pass a full vote. They didn't successfully pass the House. So McCarthy got to basically stiff-arm these guys by giving them everything they want and ultimately shutting them up because they only wanted 6 things and it all happened in 2 days. Doesn't mean they're going to stop clamoring, but it's kind of hilarious. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
You're locked into the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. So, I got a big soft spot for the idiocy of the Jan 6ers that are still in jail. Because do you know how violent, stupid, belligerent, and self-involved you have to be to still be in jail from your Jan 6 attack?
Right?
The number of people who walked away, maybe even avoided full charges, much less had to go through the process of being arrested or go through a bail hearing at all, is frigging amazing. And many of the people who were in there had they had a buddy with them. They had somebody, 2 or 3 people. There were fathers and sons. There were sorority sisters. There were all these people who had somebody right next to them. That person went home, never got charged, didn't have to have an ankle monitor, released on their own recognizance, probably will never be charged. And all they had to do was stand in front of a judge and go, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I got swept up. I didn't mean to do anything, and I didn't engage in any violence. And if I did, it's because I thought they were UN shock troops. I watch a lot of Alex Jones, and I'm not watching that guy anymore. And even if, whether it was true or not,
that's all
whether you were just lying your butt off to the judge, they're like, thanks for showing up at least. Clack, you're free to go.
Yeah.
So to get, put in the D.C. jail and kept there during, awaiting trial, you had to spit on guards and say you're giving them the, COVID and saying, if, yelling at the judge and swearing at them and saying, if you let me out today, I'll march right up there and put a bullet in Pelosi's dome, that kind of stuff. That's what these folks said at their bail hearings. Their bail. Again, thank God the people who tried to pull off Jan 6 were this stupid. Now, speaking of this stupid, remember big old Barnett, big anus Barnett, the guy who put his feet up. Yeah, right, and then wrote Nancy Pelosi a note calling her a biatch, and tried to trademark the note to make money off of it, so he could he took a picture of the note and he was gonna put it on T-shirts and trademark it so he could make money off of it. Yeah, that guy is on trial this week. As by the way, as is Elon Musk. Another story coming up, which is so choice. But this is I think there's a lot of stupid stuff that he said during it because he got very mad. He swore he's hoping, according to his testimony, that the jury lets him go because they just realized he was an effing idiot. That's his defense. I was an effing idiot, and I hope they realize I know I was an effing idiot, and now I want to go home. Even though during his bail hearing and all this stuff, which they also get to hear, he's been, saying, I'd do it again. But this is from the prosecutor. You love the Constitution? Barnett, love it. Prosecutor, First Amendment? Big O, yes. Prosecutor, Second Amendment? Big O, yes. Prosecutor, love the Third Amendment? Big O, yes. Prosecutor, what's the Third Amendment? Big O,
I don't know.
I don't know. That's exactly right. That is the direct quote. I don't know. That is the quality of the foot soldiers, the armchair generals, the Twitterati surrounding the Jan 6 attack on the Capitol. That is the brain trust that tried to carry out a coup against the biggest, arguably the biggest government institution on the planet, and why it was doomed to fail. Because what's the Third Amendment? I don't know. And by the way, that was a part of an exchange where they were telling him, they were asking him about his propensity to exaggerate and brag about his his patriotism. And
that's not the way to do it.
No, that is not the way to do it. But yeah, his note said Nancy Big O was here. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. He was. That's the one he was going to copyright. So this is as we go forward, understand that Jan 6 on 2 fronts. I want to reassure people of 2 things. Number one, it was doomed to fail from the start because of the idiots running it, including Steve Bannon, who's probably the smartest of the people there, but is so self-involved and has so many divergent outcomes that he can benefit from that he was never on track to support Trump or Roger Stone because he benefits if it fails or it succeeds. So when you have somebody on your team where it doesn't matter if you win or lose, like it's almost like a guy who bets on his team to win, who's playing on your team. He bet on the team to win, but he's also being paid by the mob to shave points. So, right? So he's going to get $100,000 payout whether you win or lose. He can throw the fight or, throw the game, or he can win. It doesn't matter. That guy is the worst person to rely on in a circumstance. Even then, like a dumber true believer, because at least they're like the Energizer Bunny. Just as long as you point them in the right direction, they'll make a mess whichever direction you want them to, like Big O and these other idiots in Jan 6. But Bannon himself, and I've watched him multiple times, laugh in Mike Pillow's face as Mike Pillow talks about, Dominion and the election lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. How could you not?
Because,
I would think if he's paying for your show, because Bannon's show is on the Lindell TV network, and even when it isn't, it's paid for by My Pillow ads, you'd think he would be a little deferential and try to hold it down. But we've seen it multiple times. Now, there's so much to this, like there's been so many people worrying about the fact that the insurrectionists are now on the oversight committee. Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and Marge Green, who's, by the way, now stiff-arming QAnon.
What?
Which is, she was I believed a lot of things I saw on the internet, which is what you want from an elected official.
No.
Yeah, she is now backing away from that, and you cannot do that without a cost. You're not allowed. You can't just work that plantation and walk off the field one day. They're not going to let you. You can think you work there free and clear. You do not. That's a piper no one wants to pay. Those people are frigging crazy. Look, there are faux-aggressive, fake leftist, anti-democratic people who view themselves as progressive Dems who crap talk people and malign and undermine voting on the Democratic side. They're a pain. They're gross. They're the tanky crowd that we've seen many times who allegedly are left-leaning but somehow always manage to support Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, right? That crowd. But none of them are armed, right? None of them are the kind of lunatics that show up at the FBI field office in Cincinnati with a gun or a body armor and a taser. As bad as they are, and they are bad, they suck, but none of us are afraid of them. It's a conversation, it can be an argument, it's a mess to deal with sometimes, but it never breaks towards physical violence anymore. Maybe it did when the Weather Underground was around, or you could make an argument about the Unabomber being that way, but not anymore. Certainly not the crowd we're dealing with these days, and certainly not the millennial group of them. That's not where the Republicans are, and that's not where Marge Green finds herself. Because the people that she is stiff-arming, and even Trump, like if you listen to how Alex Jones called Trump autistic this week because of his support of vaccines.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah. So I thought their line was vaccines cause autism, and apparently it's the other way around, that autism causes vaccines. I guess it's an ABBA logic that you can't escape. That said, as she tries to move away, and as Trump, you can see how Trump got booed at his own rallies supporting the vaccines. And I would like to remind everyone again, the theme of this hour is that this was supposed to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be, the red wave would be followed up by the True Freedom Caucus taking over these committees, and there's going to be a church level committee to look at the intelligence community talking to, they're going to go over the Twitter files and I don't know, and find nothing. Actually, they're going to find a bunch of nonsense. And by the way, TOH Live, thank you for the gifted subs. By the way, lovely. We got a bunch of those in there, yeah. And she also, they also gave a super chat as well. Thank you for that. And Brian, thank you. Why is it there are no repercussions to people who lie to obtain their job. If you lied once in any job application, your dismissal would be instant. It's a good question. I'll tell you why. Because you're not being hired.
It's up to the employer, right?
Well, and the employer is the collective voter in this situation. And on the Republican side, they have already said they don't care. They consider it a plus. Never mind the fact that George Santos has. Here's the other part. Here's the as we go into the next break. Santos is now claiming, or at least claimed in April of last year, before the primary, that he has dual citizenship in Brazil and the United States, which means his marriage to a Brazilian woman who lives in the United States was a green card arrangement, because not only did they divorced as soon as the time period was up, and he was arguably paid for it. She didn't live in the house with him. She lived in Astoria or something like that. That he also talked to another gay friend of his who also described him as crazy and said,
I hope that's how you describe me, Hal.
No, I use wacky a lot because it covers a lot of ground.
Oh, Johnny, he's a wackadoo.
He's a wackadoo. But yeah, so Santos tried to talk one of his other gay friends into marrying a Brazilian woman because it can be very lucrative, he said, for citizenship. Now, what two things do the Republicans love more in the world than drag queens and people coming across the border illegally?
No.
Especially if they marry their way in falsely, to get a green card and then permanent residence status. I mean, those are the. I don't think this is going to come out in the church committee that they're putting together. I don't think Marge Green on the Homeland Security committee is going to bring this up anytime soon. We got to do something about these people who marry just for green cards, like George, openly admitting it, and not only openly admitting it to his friend, but telling his friend it's a good business. And again, we don't know. He claimed last year to have dual citizenship in Brazil and the United States. No word on whether that's true or not. At this point, because he said it, it's more than likely a lie. But if it is, and he hasn't said so, and he didn't let his voters know, or I'm certain that the Republicans have issues with this. Again, simply because he seems to be a one-man smuggling operation. Oh God, this is and whatever it is, whatever the moment of shock, the pearl clutch that you may have had around George Santos, anything he said or done, apparently there is no bottom or there is no top. There is just at some point. That analogy aside, that sounded like something. At some point, someone else he's going to say something else, or video is going to come up showing him saying something else that you're going to go, oh my God, that blows my mind. That even with all this other stuff, I have to say, I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. He does not represent my district, Johnny. He doesn't represent your district. He's a complete waste of time to the New York 3 district that decided to be part of the redistricting and reshape itself. Knock yourself out. If you guys want to solve it, fine. But a single congressperson is never going to be sweat on my brow ever, even when it's Marge Green or Matt Gaetz or something like that, because nationally, zero impact. As a matter of fact, the more impact they try to have, the more they take themselves off the national stage, because it doesn't work that way. You got a choice. You can cultify yourself or you can generalize yourself. If you want to go national or even statewide for Senate, you got to generalize yourself. If you over-cultify yourself like Marge and like Matt Gaetz, the second you try to generalize, they will viciously go after you. Your own people, your deepest supporters. Whether that's your job or not, whether they think you're a Trojan horse, they don't care. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega, worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I'm starting to understand why I don't have as much time to talk during my segments, because Devin's bumpers
are 3 minutes long.
You want a quick promo, Hal? You got a quick promo, Hal.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks Radio program. Mega Watch, Guys, Press Talk, WCPT. Woo! Yeah!
Good times. Welcome back. So, needless to say, in continuing our theme of the smooth sailing that they were supposed to have, the Republicans were supposed to have, one of the biggest, look at almost anything that they jump in to backing, that they went all in on. Look at anything that they're like, Elon Musk, he's a genius, he's a libertarian, he's going to reveal the truth about what was going on. He's got, Matt Taibbi, who, if you'll recall, the Chicago Reader did great work going over his old business partner's autobiography that he wrote about his time with Matt in Russia, where Matt Taibbi was in Russia from 92 to 97. Oh, no, they started the exile in 97. So from 92 to 2000, essentially, Matt Taibbi was in Russia as a 22-year-old in Russia.
Weird.
Like playing professional sports and writing anti-American vlogs and joking about expats. It's weird.
Cool.
Anyways, that dude has got the Twitter files. Now, those Twitter files, by the way, are being doled out to him by, quote, a third party. No word on who that third party is, but clearly it's one of Elon Musk's employees or a lawyer or somebody that Elon himself sending certain stuff like, take a look at this. Now, they have to admit the sort of balancing act that, the Trump administration and the Biden campaign both asked for things to be taken down. In the case of the Biden campaign, they asked for nude pictures of Hunter Biden, which were on his phone, that were leaked as part of the alleged laptop, which does not exist, to be taken down. Which, by the way, shouldn't be hard because they violate the terms of service. That you can't post pictures, you can't post revenge porn or pictures of people naked without their consent, much less nude pictures like that. Anyways, not a heavy lift. Not like them strong arming. Like that's how Twitter makes its main money is revenge porn pictures, and by asking them to do it, you're denying them ad rev. Right? This is simply follow your own terms of service.
It's not like they're tracking a private plane GPS or something.
Yeah, right, which is publicly available on the FAA's website at all times, like every other plane, so planes don't run into each other.
Seems weird.
Yeah, it seems weird. But meanwhile, the Trump administration asking for things to be taken down was, in effect, the sitting government, a government entity that had control over the levers of the Department of Justice and others, where threats from them would be meaningful to Twitter if they didn't follow. If they didn't do what the administration said, there could be a feeling inside Twitter that something's going to happen to us because it's the government of the United States. It's the active government. They actually have a lot of power. Now, the thing you find out, I think the clearest thing of all the Twitter files is that the constant redressing that Twitter on multiple occasions told the FBI and whoever else from the U.S. government to go pound sand. If they asked for something that Twitter wasn't ready to do, they just said, nah, we don't see that, so that's fine. Which means there was no collusion, to use an old Trump phrase. There was no control point. Because if you can say no at all, you're not beholden. Anybody who's beholden to, or in danger or being censored can't say no. And Twitter multiple times told the Biden campaign, which was a private entity, no. And they told the Trump administration and the FBI no. Multiple times. End of story. The minute you can say no, you can always say no. If they're telling you something like, hey, don't walk out into traffic, you can have the right to just go ahead and walk out in traffic, I suppose. And if you get hit, it's your ass. But it's not, they weren't trying to censor your right to free movement. They were just warning you that you're about to step into traffic. That's different than them arresting you for trying to cross the street legally, which is that's the allegation of Matt Taibbi and Elon Musk. Elon Musk want people to believe that the FBI, the intelligence community, the administration, and the Biden campaign were censoring and violating the rights of a private company by forcing them to do things. None of that happened in any of the paper, in any of it. And even if there were people there who leaned politically leaned such a way that they had their number on they had their thumb on the switch and they could shut down an account because they just hated that person. I got news for you. That's true of any private company. If you scream a racial epithet in a restaurant, the owner or the maitre d' might decide that's fine with them. But the cook or other patrons or somebody working in the kitchen or somebody at working the cashier who that phrase pertains to at any time can go, get that person out of here. And that's fine. That is not censoring them. That's a private that's a private company and a private space, private property. And it is weird to me that while the Mark Levins of the world scream Marxism every time the Democrats try to make sure there's a social safety net program for Americans so that they can venture out into the financial industry, so they can be entrepreneurial because they have a bigger net to catch them and they don't have to worry about their children if they want to risk starting a business or something like that. That's Marxism. That's violent communism. But make no mistake, what the Twitter files are arguing is that the government has the right to do this to a private company and should do it in certain cases, but only to benefit one side. The problem that Elon Musk has and Matt Taibbi has is that the private campaign of the Biden, that Biden was running, asked Twitter to take some things down, and in some cases they did, and in some cases they didn't. That was that was censorship of some of the things. I don't know if that qualifies that Twitter is censoring the Biden campaign by not taking down other stuff. That's how goofy this is. But it's a constant issue that the Republicans, again, this was part of the smooth sailing. This was supposed to set them up. This was supposed to, the Twitter files were going to show the world. And that's why, by the way, watch the Twitter files as they come out and they get reiterated in these committee hearings. And there's even less of a there. Because that's what I'm telling you right now. Looking at what's been written, both on Twitter and in the Substacks, the biggest red flag in all of them is the lack of evidence of control specifically. At no point did anyone say, do this or you're done, from anywhere inside the government itself that we're aware of. Now, there may have been a situation where the Trump administration, which did have power, said that, but Elon Musk is not releasing that. That is a distinct possibility that when they look into this stuff and they and Democrats who are on that committee decide, we want to see all of the Twitter files that you're referencing. I want to see their conversations about, posts about the Trump administration, because you say both were wiped, off by request. But what was the conversation like? We're only seeing the conversation coming from the Biden campaign, and that was just a private campaign asking for stuff. They have no control. They have no power. They're literally running for office. There is no guarantee. Biden's in office now, but there was no guarantee that he was going to win. So Twitter had no reason to fear it. As a matter of fact, they could help manipulate it the other direction if they wanted to. So the more they look, this all boils down to Arizona counties looking for voter fraud.
Votes.
Yep. Every time they look, what did they find? More Biden votes that were thrown out illegally. That's how all these committees are going to go. And it's, I personally, like I said, there will not be enough popcorn for 2023. We'll be back. Philip Bittner's going to join us in the next hour from Ukraine. And there's so much stuff going on there right now. It's going to be
I've
hard
already
to
got
pick
questions.
Yeah, we'll jump right into those right away because there's so much going on. So anyways, we'll be back right after this.